Following the most brutal loss in franchise history for the Toronto Blue Jays, the real reason has emerged behind their loss in Game 7 of the World Series. And folks, we have some comments from the players themselves, but also some wild statistics behind yesterday's game that reveal some things that are going to have fans really, really upset. We're going to write down exactly what happened, but also discuss how this impacts this offseason approaching. But not only that, we do have some positive things. We have some very unique and emotional, once again, comments from the players, from the coaching staff, and a ton to go over on this episode. But I guarantee you're going to want to stay tuned until the end of this one. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button, folks. This is the place to be for daily Jays content. And like I said, the videos aren't stopping despite the Jays falling short of a World Series. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to rub salt into the wound, but this has to be spoken about now. Of course, yesterday, most brutal loss in franchise history, and I'm not going to be super negative about the team. However, there's been some stats that have emerged. There's been some reports, all these different things surrounding how the Jays managed to lose that game, and people aren't really talking about some of these specifics. And let's start with, of course, the IKF contact play as things have started to emerge here. And this is pretty interesting because you can, and we have IKF revealing the truth, a ton of different things here, but IKF at contact on that Varsho play. And you're going to understand why I'm talking about this, even though the World Series is over, because it stems back to the coaching staff. Inexcusable lack of a secondary lead, overemphasis on avoiding a line drive double play. IKF can basically be as far away from third as Muncy is. He has at least 2 more steps, only needed 1. And this is, of course, all stemming from IKF being literally an inch away from winning the World Series if he would have either not slid or had a secondary lead. Now, the reason this is so upsetting is because, there's a million points we can point to where this Toronto Blue Jays team lost the World Series, whether that be stranding the bases loaded without scoring a run with less than 2 outs, whether it be the IKF play, whether it be the the ball getting stuck underneath, or the double play when Berger got doubled off. But this one stands out to me most importantly because people are livid about it, and it was unavoidable in theory. Now, let's dive right into it. You can see here, IKF spoke out because he was getting flamed. He was even getting threats to his phone. After Game 7, IKF had people blaming him for the Blue Jays' loss and threatening to break his legs. He wanted to share his thoughts on why he didn't have a bigger lead at third base before attempting to score. So before I read this quote, obviously don't do that. And that's like a horrible, horrible thing to do. And I don't even fully blame IKF for the loss. And even if I did, it's just baseball. You should never, ever threaten. So if you're doing that, stop. It's stupid. They told us to stay close to the base. They don't want us to get doubled off in that situation with a hard line drive. Varsho hits the ball really, really hard. Muncy's right there. I'm waiting for a backpack from Will Smith in that situation. I can't get doubled off right there. So it's almost like bases loaded. They wanted a smaller lead and a smaller secondary, so that's what I did. It was obviously a tough play. They got it done. The lead is small. You can't get doubled off. Now, this had people pretty upset, but this is the reason that they didn't win. At least one of the reasons. And the reason people are most upset about behind why they lost the World Series was pretty bad base running the whole way through. And don't get me wrong, season, fantastic. A huge, huge win overall for the country of Canada and the Toronto Blue Jays organization. It could have been a whole lot better if they would have done some of the little things. And again, I'm not going to take the negative side. I'm going to be super positive, fantastic game. But you can see here, so he's blaming the coaching staff, but what about sliding when it would only hinder him? And I don't want to do this to, rub salt into the wound. It's more so about, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are about it, because we've had about 24 hours, a bit less than that, to kind of absorb the loss. And I don't want to just blame IKF or even the coaching staff in this case. There was a lot of ways. Varsho didn't turn into have a noodle bat the entirety of the World Series. They win the World Series. If they don't pinch hit, John Schneider doesn't pinch hit in Game 3 for a bunch of horrible hitters, you probably win the World Series. No disrespect to Miles Fry and IKF. They are bad hitters, but it is what it is. They're good at what they do. Well, Miles Fry is. It's interesting because it gets really, really rough. And you can see here, I can never be happy. It is horrible. It's a horrible feeling as a Jays fan. And we're going to dive into some comments in a minute that, kind of make you feel, I feel terrible for the players, of course, and I feel terrible for IKF in general, because if that's what he was told to do, yes, not sliding is what it is. But this is the World Series, and they make decisions on the fly. Miguel Rojas, if he didn't bobble the ball, he was out anyway by 5 feet. I almost wish he didn't bobble the ball, so I wouldn't have to keep reliving in my nightmares the inch away from his secondary lead that IKF had. But there are some numbers here. His primary lead was some of the worst out of all the World Series. His secondary lead was literally basically the worst out of all secondary leads in the World Series. But his sprint speed was pretty good, right? 61st out of 689. So that's the reason if you want to point to one reason, it's not just this play. It's the base running in general, but it's also lack of, clutchness from some of the bullpen guys and the hitters. But I'm curious to see what you guys think about it. I had to cover it. This will be the last video on this particular incident. I'm moving on now to the offseason, but I did want to get this video out just to put it to bed. Yes, they had a horrible, horrible game. They lost the World Series. They choked the last two games. There's Yankees fans, there's Mariners fans all coming at us. They made it to the World Series, and I'm going to take some solace, and I'm really proud of the boys. Now, speaking of this, Jeff Hoffman blamed himself. He said, I cost everyone in here a World Series ring. It feels pretty, and I'm sure you know what we're talking about there. And it's true at the end of the day. Like, part of this is, of course, on Jeff Hoffman, but I don't want to individually point out people because Jeff Hoffman, he was dynamite getting up to this point. He's the reason, one of the key reasons that the Jays were even here in the first place. 11 innings, 1 earned run prior to yesterday's earned run. Yes, he gave up a home run to Miguel Rojas. Miguel Rojas just sat splitter and hoped that he threw it at a full count because Shohei Ohtani was up next and you knew wasn't walking him. There's a lot of different avenues could have went here, but Hoffman was a beast the whole playoffs. Yes, he had some struggles throughout the year, but obviously everyone's taking accountability. And then, of course, gets the sad part. Within the Blue Jays clubhouse early Sunday morning, which is this morning, the players who had come so close tried to make sense of what happened. They talked about everyone is talking about how much they loved each other. And I think that's what's special about this team. You can see at the bottom, I just love every single guy in here so much. I've been crying for probably about an hour. Thought I was done with tears. All I care is about hanging out with these guys for another couple of hours. And the good news is, not a lot of free agents for the Jays. They can basically run it back, assuming they bring back Bichette, and there'll be a million videos I'll have covering all of that. But they're in a position where they can run it back. Does lightning strike in a bottle 2 years in a row? We don't know. You can look back to the Royals in 2014 when they collapsed and won the World Series in 2015. I believe those are the years. Correct me down below if I'm wrong. But you can also look at teams like maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks who made the World Series and haven't really been super good since. Maybe the Jays fall somewhere in between. But this team was special. Shane Bieber called it a lightning in a bottle he'll probably never feel again. And feel free to read this little excerpt here. Vladdy is the one who's really hurting the most. He carried him and Ernie, but Vladdy carried this team. He wanted to win a World Series for the country and the city of Toronto. He signed that 15-year, $500 million extension, which feels like 8 years ago, 10 years ago. It was literally just a few months ago. And now, a little bit more than a few months ago, pretty much. Now, this team has to relish with the fact that they were inches away. Poor base running obviously contributed to it. But you have to go out and you had to win that game. It's not always or even often that a pro sports franchise reflects back the closeness, passion, and emotion of fans. They sometimes leave us speculating how deeply they feel it. With the Toronto Blue Jays, there was no question how much they cared about winning and each other. And that's what's special about this team. If you want to be negative, I understand it. Cope any way you want to. Obviously, don't be negative towards others, but or yourself even, but you can feel negative feelings, right? Or negative thoughts. This team was special. And I fully believe that they're going to be back here next year. Whether that's delusion or not, it is what it is. There was a reason behind their madness this year, and hopefully they can, get it back there next year. But folks, let me know down below how you're feeling. Hopefully we're all doing a little bit better, but little mistakes cost them the World Series. But at the same time, I'm proud of this team.